Hello, everyone. I'm Sara Luterman, caregiving reporter at the 19th. I'm excited to be here with Carson Pickett. She is a defender for the National Women's Soccer League's Racing Louisville. She was born without a left forearm and became the first player with a limb difference to play for the U.S. women's national team. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to talk.
So you've talked a little bit in other interviews about how you used to feel embarrassed about your limb difference, but that you learned to embrace it. What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I think, as a girl growing up in today's society, it can be quite difficult to, especially if you have a physical disability, to grow up in today's society. So I think that it was challenging early on because I just didn't want to be any different than any of the other girls at school, or on the soccer field, or, really just in life in general. And so that carried with me for quite some time. Luckily, I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky, but I grew up in a private school. So I graduated with about 50 people. So everyone in that school knew my story. And so I didn't really have to explain myself growing up much. And I was on a soccer team with the same 5 best friends throughout my entire high school, middle school, and pretty much elementary career. And so again, I didn't have to ever explain myself because I always had the comfort of having people around me that knew me and knew my story. And it wasn't until college, my freshman year, I struggled as well, would wear hoodies in the dead heat of summer in Florida. And it just got to be too much. And I just remember being so sad about getting interviewed only about my arm and not about soccer. And my mom finally was like, you need to flip your script somehow. You need to use this as an advantage because there's not many people who can tell this story. She was like, there's literally no one in, at the time, college soccer that has an arm like you in soccer. So I think that you need to kind of think about this for a while and see what kind of story you want to tell with your arm. And she's like, I really think you can help people. So if you look at it from that point of view, maybe it'll change your mind a little bit because you're actually helping people rather than just being embarrassed about being different.
So how did you get interested in soccer?
I was interested first because my dad played college soccer. So we would always go out in the backyard and he coached my first team. So I think kind of that bond between us originally started soccer for me, but I then had the 5 best friends, honestly, since I was about 7 years old. And I think that, having them and going to practice with them and, the orange slices on the sideline, all the things kids love growing up playing soccer, just kind of kept me interested. And then I played some other sports. I played tennis, basketball, I swam, but soccer really was the main sport that I was interested in and that I was good at. The other sports were a little more difficult having one arm, but yeah, so I originally started because of my dad, but I think the friendships and the bonds kind of kept me in it.
So the U.S. women's soccer team is one of the most dominant teams in the world, which means you're one of the most dominant players in the world, with or without a disability. How does it feel to be who you are at the pinnacle of your sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we forget about it because we're just so involved in our own journey that you kind of don't step back sometimes and realize how good you really are, to be honest. And so I think sometimes, especially for me, I'm pretty humble, so I just want to get to the next level. I don't think about the next level, but sometimes it's nice to step back after I got my first cap and realize that I did just play for the United States women's national team. So that was a really cool experience. And the journey so far has been really great. And it's not always just about soccer, but again, about the bonds and friendships I've made along the way and the amazing people I've met that really make soccer exciting, really.
So looping back to, I guess, the question of like representation, do you feel like you saw people like you on television when you were growing up?
Not at all. No, I never saw anyone like me on television. I think that's why it was so difficult to be different growing up because, it wasn't like you had Mia Hamm. Let's say Mia Hamm had one arm. It wasn't like, oh, I have one arm like Mia Hamm and she's awesome, so I'm awesome. Like no one knew anyone that was anyone with an arm. So I think it was kind of my own journey. And we didn't really have social media growing up at all. We had Facebook, but that was for your second cousins and aunts, so there wasn't much social media. And so I never really met many people growing up that looked like me, nor did I see anyone on television that was like me. So I think that was another difficult part of the journey, is that I felt kind of alone sometimes.
How does it feel to be the person that you needed when you were a kid? I know there's some pictures that have gone viral of you, like fist bumping Joseph Tidd, who also has a limb difference, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I feel a sense of pride about it. Honestly, I think that for the longest time, I just didn't really care. I didn't, to be honest. I just didn't want to be different. I didn't want anyone to reach out to me and lean on me, because I'm like, that's just not my job. I'm on my own journey trying to figure it out. But now it's completely different. Every single time someone messages me, I try and get back to them, or if I'm able to see them in a stadium or meet up with them at some point, I love the ability to meet other people that are like me. And I just didn't have that much growing up. So it is really special to be that person to a lot of people, and mainly kids. I think, especially kids my age that are girls, I think it's really, really exciting. And I can imagine for them, it would be a sense of relief to know that, I can do anything I want to do because I've seen someone do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like something that we talk about sometimes in the disability community is the idea of like inspiration porn, like the idea of like disability automatically making someone like really inspiring. And I think that's sort of like interestingly complicated for you, because like you are on one of the best soccer teams in the world, which is genuinely inspiring. I mean, how does navigating that feel for you?
Yeah, I think sometimes I will say, when people are like, oh, you're so inspiring and things like that, I do think it can be quite difficult. I don't know, for a little while, I was like, I don't know why it kind of frustrated me or annoyed me a little bit, because I'm like, am I just inspirational because I'm missing a limb? Or is it because I'm missing a limb and, getting to the highest level in women's soccer? So sometimes I think, I get a bit frustrated when they're like, oh, you're so inspirational. And I'm like, do you know my story though? Or is it just because of something that you see? And, that was early on that I felt that way. I don't feel that way anymore, because I think people just, obviously are trying to be polite, or they're just trying to have some kind of connection. But yeah, for a little while, I would get a little frustrated with that, because I was like, I don't know why you're saying I'm inspirational besides because I'm missing a hand. But now I understand why people say that. And I appreciate anytime they say that or reach out, because I know that they're just trying to maybe have a bond or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for viewers, I guess like a little parenthetical, inspiration porn is a concept that was popularized by the Australian disability advocate Stella Young to describe how disability kind of gets portrayed sometimes, where like it's either like this really tragic, horrible thing that happened to someone, or like, oh my God, you went outside. That's amazing. Like, so it's always really exciting to talk to people who are really breaking down those narratives in our culture, because they're really like embedded. So getting back to the interview, sorry for the little parenthetical. I just realized that maybe viewers weren't necessarily familiar with the concept. So something I think that's really interesting that you've done is work with Nike to develop the Phantom GT Fly Ease cleat. So what this is it's a cleat that doesn't have any laces, so that it's easy on, easy off for folks who may have mobility or other challenges, like taking a shoe on and off. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like working with Nike to develop this shoe?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think this is one of the best experiences I've ever had. When a company like Nike reaches out to you, I am a Nike athlete, so I do work closely with them anyway. But when a company like that's so well known, worldwide, reaches out to you and asks for your help, I think just that, I didn't even know what it's about at first, and I was like, the fact that you're just asking for my help is already the most amazing thing I've ever done. So yeah, it was incredible. There's a guy who also is missing a hand that works with Nike, and him and a couple other people within, I think it was basketball to start, I think there's a basketball shoe maybe that he helped create. And so he was like, wow, this is perfect. We created this basketball shoe. Now we have someone who actually has one arm playing professional soccer that we can help with a boot. And so they reached out to me and they're like, this is our idea. Can you help us perfect it? So, oh man, we went through a bunch of boots trying to figure it out. I said, this is what's challenging for me. And I went through each step, like, you know, the heel, the laces, and things like that. So we went through each step and he literally wrote down every single thing that's challenging and made it into a boot. And he sent me, we probably went through 5 or 6 different boots. And he's like, all right, I'm going to send you some. This is the start. How can I be better with it? And so I'd get the boot, I'd train in it. And I would say this kind of hurt because I had to pull the laces too tight. Now my heel kind of hurt. So we went back and forth 5 or 6 times to perfect the boot. And then we finally got to a boot that we both loved. And I think it was just so incredible. I mean, my favorite part is one, putting a boot on with, you know, with one hand is quite challenging, especially if it's really tight. So we have a drop down heel, so you can slide your foot in without having to like hold it up and shove your foot in. So that was one of the best parts. And then obviously the laces that wrapped around, so I could pull it as tight or as loose as I wanted to. And I felt complete comfort. And it was just, it's so nice. You know, now I can tie my shoe. I'm able to do it quickly, but growing up, I remember having to run to the sideline and have my mom or dad tie my shoe in the middle of the game. So for anyone who's younger, and quite honestly, I think it'd be a good boot for most people who even have 2 hands, because when you're young, it's quite challenging to tie your shoe. So I think it not only benefited, you know, those that are missing a limb, but really every kid that kind of struggles with tying their shoe growing up.
Something I think is also really interesting about the product is that it's like actually for sale. I feel like a lot of the times like companies will do these like accessible products that get all this press and then like you can't actually buy it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in particular like, so for example, like not to call anybody out, but like Olay, for example, had that accessible lid that they got all that press for, and then it was you could never buy it. I think they ended up like releasing like a 3D printed thing you could get, but like
yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, so I just think it's really exciting that like this is an actual shoe that people can buy and wear and use. Was that important to you during the process, that like it actually be something people can get?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we can all come up with a million ideas and never do anything with them. So I think that when we do come up with such an amazing idea and perfect something that takes so long to make right, it's exciting to be able to share it and to be able to allow kids, adults, anybody to get this boot and to actually wear it and feel at ease like I did when I put it on. So that was really important for me as well, to make sure that it actually went on the market.
Have you looked at I also think it's cool that they have like they do like a version of the Air Jordan, or do you have any of the other shoes that they've done?
I have a pair of running shoes and lifting shoes that he sent me. To be honest, I'm not quite sure if they're on the market, but he created a bunch of different ones for different sports. And so I have a couple of those. And honestly, I wore one of them running shoes the other day at the airport, and the girls were like, where'd you get those? Those would be so easy to tie and like, or not tie, but put on. And they loved it. So I'm like, maybe that's the new thing. I'll have to get some running shoes for some of the girls.
Are there any other products that you're working on right now, or was this like a very unique kind of partnership?
Yeah, this was a unique partnership. I am working on something else currently, not to do with Nike. It's in the early stages, but it's something hopefully everyone can also benefit from, that is mine as well. And so that should be released sometime this year. I can't say what it is yet, but it's going to be really exciting for me as well, because it is a part of nutrition and sports and things like that.
Yes, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is the premier disability civil rights legislation in the United States, which established that people with disabilities have a right to access public accommodation, restaurants, everything everybody else accesses, turns 33 this year. So you've basically lived your whole life with that, like with the Americans with Disabilities Act as part of your life. Have you ever, I mean, do you know what it was like for folks with limb differences before the ADA?
No, to be honest, no, I don't really. Because like you said, my whole lifetime I was able to have that. But I do know how challenging it could be because there are things that actually have happened to me. And I do have that. So I can imagine things that happened to those people when they weren't covered by that. In particular, airlines, I find it quite difficult sometimes to sit in an exit row because they think that you're not able or capable of doing something. And for me, I am able and capable. So I kind of had a run in with an airline one time. So things like that, it was quite mortifying, to be honest. And so I can imagine, not being covered by that, how difficult it would have been. But luckily, I feel really honored to have it, honestly, because I just know that I can live a little more free knowing that I have that kind of protection.
Since this is Disability Pride Month, I wanted to ask, what does disability pride mean to you?
I think for me, it's just what's the best way to put this? I think it's just to feel good being yourself, to feel good having the body that you have, and to be able to be free in that body and not feel ashamed of who you are or what your circumstances are. Because, a lot of people who don't have disabilities, they don't sometimes understand what it's like to look different. And, that's even walking in the mall, walking to a grocery store. I know that every single time I step out of the house that people are going to be staring at me. And I think that was quite difficult as well growing up. I didn't really feel it as much for myself, but when people were around, maybe also that I weren't super close with, like some new friends and things like that, I almost felt uncomfortable because I didn't know if they felt uncomfortable knowing that people are staring at me. And so luckily I was able to kind of, move past that. But sometimes I do feel like the people I'm with, also feel a bit like nervous sometimes because they do see people staring at me when we're walking down the mall. And honestly, most of the time now I don't even realize it. So I think just for me is just feeling comfortable with who you are and allowing yourself to have the space to be different. I think being different is beautiful. I think being unique is amazing. And I honestly think imperfection is beauty. I have a tattoo that says that. And I just want to live that way. I want to live the way that I feel. And right now I do really feel free in the body that I have, and even missing a limb. And now I've realized growing up and being a lot more mature that, people are so unique and so different. And I just want them to know that they can be unique and different and love themselves at the same time.
So here's my last question. The Women's World Cup is coming up. What do you expect to see from Team USA this summer?
Oh, hopefully a gold medal. But yeah, I'm excited to watch them. Obviously, I have a lot of friends on the team, so the time change is quite difficult. But yeah, I mean, I hope they come back with the gold medal. I hope they win. And we have a lot of really good players on that team, so I'm just so excited to watch them and watch their journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.